Ladies and gentlemen, the final panel discussion for the Leaders of Luxury Summit today is an exploration of crafting bespoke horizons, personalization and sustainability in ultra-luxury experiences. Moderated by Jen Paolini, please welcome our speakers, Jules Maury, Head of Scott Dunn Private, and Angel Chia, Executive Director of the Hong Kong Academy for Wealth Legacy. Please give our panel a warm round of applause as they delve into the future of personalized, sustainable, ultra-luxury travel and hospitality.
Thank you, Robin. Well, I've started today, I'm going to finish the day. I have here with me Jules Maury of Scott Dunn Private and Angel Chia of the Hong Kong Academy for Wealth Legacy. She is not Candice de Cruz, she is Angel Chia. Okay, right. Thank you everyone for sticking around. I know it's been a long day of very interesting discussions. And we are going to end it today with crafting bespoke horizons, personalization and sustainability in ultra-luxury experiences. So what we're going to do here is we're going to explore the evolving landscape of ultra-luxury travel, the behavioral changes of ultra-high net worth travelers, and we're going to focus on the intersection of hyper-personalized experiences, deep cultural immersion, sustainable practices, purpose-driven travel, and the role of creating legacy through experiential travel in the global travel market. So, lots to talk about, a lot of ground to cover, but we've got the perfect people on stage to tackle this with. My gosh, let's get started. Behavioral shifts. What can you tell us, Angel, about the behavioral changes you have noticed among your network of families and members?
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me again. For context, because I probably don't normally fit here in the room of luxury hotel and travel experiences. Hong Kong Academy for Wealth Legacy is fully funded and born out of a Hong Kong government initiative for this jurisdiction to try to engage a little bit more of family up-gen, next-gen, single family office executives, and also family private foundations. So that's really the reason why it allows for me to be in the position to engage a lot of ultra high net worth next gens, and a lot of them are my friends. So I suppose the most important thing, particularly after not just COVID, but the world that we are in today, the idea of YOLO really becomes a lot more personal, and. It is what it is. It's for all of us. But just to offer some examples, I was speaking with this really good friend of mine, Next Gen, and he was talking about the Chancery, without the brand, the new opening, and he was like, at the price tag that it puts out, even for Next Gen. Normally, we're going to be a little bit more pragmatic. We're going to think twice. He's like, after COVID. Seriously, he just wants the experience. He wants to have that memory, and he would make a decision a lot faster to be able to just up and go for that experience. So that's very important, actually, just seizing the moment and making sure that you feel more with the experience, actually, from the travel that you get.
What have you noticed, Jules?
Something, in a way, fairly personal. I will first introduce myself. I am head of Scott Dunn Private. That is the wealth management side, private client side, invitation only of Scott Dunn, which I think somebody said was a concierge company. We are not. We basically are an international travel tour operator who takes people all over the world, provides some incredible travel experiences. But to follow on from what Angel was saying, it is you only live once. But the extraordinary thing now is, whereas adults all those years ago used to say, we're going on holiday, our children are X, Y, and Z, they're coming with us. Today, there is no question whatsoever that Gen Z and everything even smaller is determining where their parents go. They are being absolutely swayed by social media. They're following TikTok. I think it's something like 65.5% of Gen Z is saying, no, I'm not going there. And I know of some extraordinary itineraries I've put together, a couple of £100,000, and my kids don't want to do that. We really have to wake up and listen. It's not just adults who are driving where we're going today. It's the whole family.
Yeah. we can't talk about travel without talking about the impact that it leaves on communities, environments, and places. So, Jules, how does Scott Dunn Private balance the demand for ultra-personalized travel experiences with the need to maintain these sustainable practices, particularly in destinations that are lesser explored?
Well, as long as you were all listening, I believe that Mr. James McBride, who is sitting over here, has answered that question perfectly for me. We do get a lot of requests, obviously. Everything we do is bespoke, to put together some really different, experiential, wonderful, as far as you can go in the world and as difficult it is to get their requests. And we do really rely heavily on our partners to actually fulfill the part that is really dear to our hearts. So somewhere like Nihi Sumba, for instance, the Sumba Foundation, you've already heard from James, provides so much. It not only empowers the people who work with the hotel, it empowers the whole community. And people love to go to places. Some of them know about this beforehand. It's really important. Others, they don't. And that's an extra layer of the memories it makes. There's somewhere in Peru called Sola Luna. The foundation was very similar to Sumba. It was set up before the hotel by the owners. And I went there in April this year. I knew about the foundation. It's only when I went and spent a few hours there, and I hadn't planned to do so, you realize how they are changing people's lives. And it's the tourists who go there. It's our money, it's your money that is actually contributing in various ways to actually doing all of this. And I think the world is changing. And then on the other side, you have in Africa, you have the human conflict wildlife, where people are actively now realizing that in order to protect the wildlife, they have to educate the humans to share the territory, if you like, along with all the conservation efforts. And we really take it seriously with our partners to look into what they're doing in these destinations and share that, because people are intelligent. They no longer just want to go to a hotel and lie on a beach, drink out of a plastic bottle and say goodbye. They just don't. And besides, their kids would never forgive them.
I mean, it's really about seeking partners that have, like, those foundations who really put emphasis into community and give back, right? Angel, how would you define ultra-luxury travel for Asia's next generation travelers? Personalization is the key word here. How does personalization, what role does it play in meeting their expectations?
So we've already talked a lot about personalization. I would even push it forward to say hyper-personalization, how bespoke it could be. And earlier when we were chatting, we talked about how important it is to know what each person wants at the end of the deepest part of their gut, basically. So it's about being able to really relate. And I would use the word or a few words. How can an experience be purposeful for the people that are involved? How can they also become transformative before and after of that experience when these ultra high net worth, particularly next gen, because that's what they're really looking for. So to give some examples, and I wanted to take the opportunity to also feature Hong Kong a little bit more since we're here, and thank you for coming. There's one activity that was done in conjunction with my friend that is sitting down there to allow for some of the international ultra-high net worth to visit Hong Kong during the Art Basel period, to give them access to what is called ex-Sum Shui Po. So the previous system that had been used for Hong Kong government as the water reservoir. It was built 1904. It was decommissioned. And at one point, the government was going to sort of level out the entire location and just build something else on it. Luckily, the local community came together and secured the heritage site. So now its heritage is normally open to public. It's normally not being used for private gathering. Because Hong Kong Academy for Wealth Legacy is half public, we were able to secure that and allow for the international guests to come and walk up 330 stairs into the cistern to marvel at the heritage that we're able to preserve. But at the same time, the country nature conservation officer was right there with us to be able to explain the history and how the reconstruction, I suppose, restoration of that location is all about. This is the kind of really detailed, really purposeful, quite personalized information, quite personalized experience that we could offer. We should offer to the next gens.
I mean, that being able to provide that kind of access is amazing, right? I mean, that is what deep cultural immersion is all about. Brings me back to Jules. What innovative approaches is Scott Dunn Private taking to cater to these evolving preferences of travelers who want deep cultural immersion? Can you tell us about something that's worked, something that hasn't?
We love not to talk about things that don't work. Of course, there always are things in life. It's the day you book the Vatican and then you find that the Pope actually has passed away, so people the following week can't go. Things like that do happen, and we have to manage those expectations. We call it ACE in Scott Dunn Private. We call it basically access and connection and experiences. And the experiences are on a different level. You can get tickets to see the Formula One Grand Prix, but if you've got your son who's basically studying archaeology at Cambridge and you want to go to Cairo and you really want to be at the pyramids at dawn, and therefore you have to close them privately, and we did, and we took them to a tomb which nobody goes to, and we had it basically opened with a team of Egyptologists. I've sat with the curator of the Dead Sea Scrolls in Jerusalem. Now, he talks to heads of state and he talks to royalty, but he agreed to see me because I had said to him, occasionally, I will not waste your time. We have people on a level who really need to speak to someone who is historically accurate and basically can tell the story like someone, and you don't share these people. But we spend an enormous pound of our life talking to our partners on the ground, talking to people in these countries. So we have these, I don't want to denigrate them and call them fixers, that would be just the wrong word to use. But it's constantly having people who are authentic. We had someone this summer who took a yacht in the Greek islands. What can be more commercially vanilla than that? But what he said is he didn't want to go to a single beach club. He didn't want his kids to go to a single restaurant. He didn't want to touch Michelin. He wanted to go to islands, to villages. He wanted to go to villages where he could go to somebody's home, and he wanted to cook with them in their home, go to their market. This was not an easy, this sounds so easy, I can't tell you. But he ended up having a trip where they had experiences. And I know at the very beginning of this whole conference, Paolo mentioned his parents taking the kids to Venezuela. They've never forgotten. His children will never forget what we organized for him. And none of it was particularly glitzy or Disney or amazing. It was real and got them under the cultural skin of what he wanted to do in Greece. And we did the same at a castle in Scotland with the local people who were delighted that we were having them to actually facilitate these experiences and not buying some expensive company up from London. It's about the people, and it always will be, and the stories that they tell, and their own historical connection with the land. That's what resonates.
That connection is profound, and it's you can't fake it. It has to be authentic, and it has to be real. Angel, the Academy for Wealth Legacy does something similar in a different way. They're called Legacy Learning Mission Programs, and they're networking experiences. What are they?
Very much so. So this is where I will also first lay the lay of the land. I talked about how the Academy primarily is engaging with family, now Gen Next Gen, single family office, and the like. Why? Right? At the end of the day, we're basically demonstrating our value proposition by helping the family to develop their legacy for the families. So at the Academy, we have legacy development goals, intergenerational integration, family governance, philanthropy, impact investing, arts and culture development for the families, and finally wealth management. As we start developing these goals with the family and the loan side family, we realize that the family also need to have a very clear community amongst themselves, which is the reason why the network comes in. So in this case, when we think about the legacy learning mission, it is first and foremost outgoing. So instead of just waiting for families to come to Hong Kong and be together, we create this outgoing tour experiences for the families to also allow for families across different jurisdictions to come together, primarily up to this point, Asian families, and towards a destination. The last destination that we went to was actually Milan and Lake Como. Then the next thing is we wanted to make sure that they learn something. And this is also where leaning on local partners, families as well as other commercial partners, I suppose. You know, they point us to Paolini University, and we end up having a half-day lecture actually at a very senior scholar at the university. So we learn together. But at the same time, it's also what do we end up doing with the local Italian families? You know, so we visited the family of Technogym, Santa Maria Novelle, for example. You know, and so this is where it becomes also very important, because it's not just where you go, it's also what you do with whom. You know, being able to tie all of that together is what we're trying to cultivate. At the end of the day, for the Academy, everything we've done is towards one single objectives, which is how can we help family to further their legacy.
I love when you just said, what you just said. What you do with whom. It's really about people, isn't it? Which brings me to Jules for a question that I know how you feel about, but I'd like you to tell the room how you feel about it. I mean, AI and tech is on everyone's minds when it comes to, you know, maximizing personalization potential. Does that really apply to the ultra-high net worth segment? You know, we hear stories of how smart tech cannot replace the human element. Is the human element that game changer, though, that makes things so remarkable?
Of course it is.
Yeah.
No, but I mean,
Short
Angel and I, we're both talking on the same page. We work with a lot of family offices. And I think it was Maury said earlier today that AI is so brilliant, it's actually inventing hotels that don't exist. I had someone before Christmas last year who said, I've done the Dolce, no, they hadn't done the Dolce Vita, they were going to do it this year because it hadn't opened. I've done the Belmont, and I want to do the Louis Vuitton train, the one that goes up with those chalets and the lakes. I said, there is no Louis Vuitton train. It's on AI. It does not. But my kids have seen it. I said, well, they would have done it. It's Christmas. Look, I think AI is brilliant. I would come home from a lot of my travel conferences. I will literally speak into the phone, the people I've met, all of my notes and everything else. It'll tidy it all up. It'll turn it into a nice document. I can share it with the team. It will not replace me 2 weeks ago. And I'm not just bigging up me. I'm just saying the face-to-face knowledge, the actual personalization that you have been somewhere. You know the GM of that hotel, and you know the team that are there. You know that the GM has left that hotel. So you know what that hotel, I'm not saying it's bad, but we've had a few problems with service lately. I know you love that hotel, but did you know that there is a cement factory that far down, or I'm really sorry, they're building that close. And it gets even more than that. I was putting together a fantastic trip in Peru. And they said, and we want to go to Maido. Maido's number 5. We've got to go to that place. We're going to go on the Monday night. I said, well, you can't. AI says it's the best hotel. You know it's restaurant, I beg your pardon. And I said, I know it is. I just been there in April. But if you get off the plane, you will be so jet-lagged, you won't even want a cup of tea. So if I'm going to send you to a Michelin star, amazing, all you're going to do is sit there and say, I don't want to eat the food. AI can't think for you. It doesn't know that you have a fear of heights. And therefore, in Machu Picchu, the guide needs to know that on certain bits you need to be helped. It doesn't know that your children are frightened of helicopters. So by the time you've planned the most amazing trip, X, Y, and Z, they're saying, well, we can't do that because of this. It has huge uses. It is merely an extension of trolling through the internet that we have all used for information. Use it, see it, but then speak to somebody face to face about whether what you have actually researched for it is going to work for you, because it's all about you. Someone said earlier on, no two people are the same.
That was me.
There you go. You can't plan a holiday for X and then replicate it for Y. It's not going to work. You have to listen.
And that's how you really pick the brains of the 130, was it 130 travel specialists that are at Scott Dunn Private? I mean, like you said, AI really trawls the internet for existing information. There's a lot of information that you guys know that's not out there. I mean, your Rolodex must be formidable.
And they travel, remember.
Yeah.
These people, these wonderful Africa, Latin, European, Indonesia, they've gone to Sumba. They've actually seen the horses coming down the beach first thing in the morning. They can talk about that firsthand. You can't smell the sea. You can't hear the pounding of hooves. You can't hear the crash of the ocean. AI can't do that bit. And it hasn't been there and seen it and slept in that bed.
Angel, you know, we're talking about legacy. We're talking about experiences. We're talking about how knowing your audience is really the key to all of this, right? How do you use travel to build legacy? I know, big question.
Yes, but it's actually not that complicated. I've seen a lot of different family office organizations, you know, organization charts, particularly when it comes to like governance. And it's interesting that the ones that are more sophisticated, in addition to having like investment type of family offices, there's actually a concierge office, and even more specifically, many of them within the concierge office, within the families, have travel specialists to make sure that there is intentional creation of travel and experience time for the families. We are talking about ultra high net worth, and I wanted all of us to imagine away from the scene, but sort of more into the families. A lot of time, if we're talking about Gen 4, 5, 6, 7, the members that we are dealing with is probably in the hundreds. Can you imagine building and sustaining a legacy if everybody is spread all over the world and they don't have the opportunity to not just break bread together, but also spend time experiencing something together? That is really the most important thing. I would even argue, and we know this sometimes, you put friendships to test by traveling together. Not everybody could do that. It's the same thing with families, right? So it's not good enough to just come together ever so often and have a meal. It is so much better and profound to take them away and put them into one place and have experiences together so that they could create memory that will convert into legacy.
The personalized travel experiences that you design, Jules, how do they contribute to building family legacies?
It's really just echoing exactly what Angel said. And often the most complex are where you have, for instance, we have one of our members, part of the family lives in Australia, part of the family lives in the United Kingdom, and there are others scattered. So it becomes, with a lot of these people, where do you send them that brings them all together, but equally gives each one and each part of that generation something that's important to all of them to do? You can't just take them all to the same place and expect someone between the ages of 14 and 80. We've done an amazing trip in the Galapagos where you can imagine there was something every day. But the most recent one was, I think if anyone's interesting, there is an incredible lodge in Africa called Segera. It's in northern Kenya. And you can have a look at the long run. Joachim Zeiss, it was his original foundation idea, and it's all about what we've been discussing more and more today. It's the community, it's where they're building, it's bringing everyone together. But there, you see, the wife is totally into wellness and holistic. It's a very holistic place. So they had the spa for her. They have an incredible art collection. The children were completely wildlife fixated. So we had the rhino. I call him the Rhino Man because he basically flew in to tell the children all about the conservation, and followed up the next day. They went out with the anti-poaching unit. It's the first women, all women, which is part of Empowering the Women, anti-poaching unit. That made their whole year, I think. And then we had some helicopters to come in and take the teenagers up to what we call the Jade Lake, up to the Turkana district, where they went over canyons, they flew over flamingos, they went and caught a giant Nile perch. Each one, if you could have listened to those stories, the grandfather told me that night around the table, everyone had had their own adventure, but within one small space. Well, it's not a small space, it's a very large conservation area. But we search for that sort of, because those kids will never forget that trip. And he said that. And hopefully one day, their children will be as involved in going back. It's how Paolo opened today. He's never forgotten that trip with his parents in Venezuela.
So I think the main takeaway is that you have to continue to engage multi-generational families. And, you know, what about destinations? What about hotels? What do they need to do?
I think I mentioned that, and it came really bizarrely. Just a few weekends ago, I'd gone down for 2 days I'd gone down to see some people to somewhere called the Marbella Beach Club. It's an old hotel in the sense it's been around for generations and generations. And because I was coming here, I was just sort of watching, because it's a quintessentially gorgeous hotel. It's like somebody yesterday at our journalist lunch mentioned Badrut's Palace. It's an iconic, one of the Grand Dames. But I watched people arriving, and there was the maitre d', or there was the hotel manager coming out, greeting everyone. And there were kids coming who were 15. They were clearly with parents. And I overheard, because I walk around listening to these kind of things, they had been there with the grandparents. They'd been coming there for 40 years. But because everything about the hotel is familiar to them, and because the service is phenomenal, and because there's everything you can do under the sun and good food, that hotel nails it today. And I think all hotels around the world, if they want to keep that legacy, if they want people to keep coming back, and we all know today, post the pandemic and everything else, what challenges have been in service, challenges in getting younger people to go into the industry. It is the hotels, as much as somebody like myself who's recommending them, that have to keep that level of service. Their teams, obviously they're alive. That's the wrong word I'm looking for. I'm actually now losing the power of speech. But you know what I'm trying to say, all of you. I'm trying to say that hotel needs to be as good as what you're telling people it is. And earlier on again, people were saying they're reinventing themselves. They're coming up with the experiences. I think it was 1, 3, 5. What do you do every hour, 3 hours, 5 hours? I think that is so important, that it's not just a place to put your head down anymore. It's a place where people remember the staff. Everyone loves going back to where they're recognized and where somebody... I lived in Hong Kong many years ago. One of my first impressions, first ever, was this lovely man in the lift of the Mandarin, and he knew my name. He knew my name. I mean, you know, I go back to the Mandarin today, years later, and I always remember that. Probably you do. Remember, I'm very old.
Angel, you know, you mentioned something in our earlier conversation, which was that the development of people is crucial. I've also just been given the notice that we need to wrap it up, so we'll make it very quick. The development of people is crucial.
Oh,
Tell
enjoying
us about that.
this.
I know. Can we have 2 more minutes? Yeah? No? Okay, no more minutes. All right.
I'll speak fast.
Yes.
But I might as well just, so I totally agree. It's about developing of that people. Yep. And, you know, the example that you share, for example, the service itself carries legacy. So the most important thing now, you know, for the service organization is not just the hardware, but how do you ensure that legacy is passed down with respect to your with your software, your people? How do you make sure that the next generation of that butler remembers your name when you go back, right? So, you know, so this is what we have to think about. I love it when service organizations think about not just internships, not just creating jobs, but let's harken back the good old-fashioned of apprenticeship. Right, having someone that learns and experiences with you, as you engage the clients together. But at the same time, I will also say it's so important now to empower the younger generation, because that continuous regeneration, reinventing themselves, that's going to come from the younger generation. So we need to listen to them and give them a lot more say to drive the new product and service.
Thank you. Thank you, Angel. Thank you, Jules. We're getting shooed off stage now, but I'm going to cheat a little bit. Let's get up, let's walk away, let's keep the microphones, and I'm going to ask you one final question. What does luxury mean for you and your clients? One sentence. Okay. What does luxury mean to you and your clients? I'm going to do it
quickly, because
yes.
everybody here today said time. We know it's time.
Yeah.
I think it's trust. But luxury spells this. Luxury, L, is love. Love for everything you do and everything you want to do. U is for ultimate. Doesn't everyone want to go on the ultimate trip? X, Xanadu. Isn't that the ideal place in the world that none of us have found yet? Utopia is the next U, where everything is perfect, and we know the world isn't perfect today. R is for Ruinart, which is my favorite champagne. And Y is for youth, YOLO. Surround yourself by youth. Listen to them. Enjoy being young. You are only on this planet, so do it all now.
Completely up your game.
Yeah. How do you follow that?
I would just say, I agree with, absolutely. I agree with that in terms of time, but I'll just say for next gen, ultimately, luxury is being able to realize yourself. That's it.
Super profound. I love it. Thank you both. You're incredible. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Jen, Jules, and Angel.